Hey there, I've got an old DeWalt handsaw. I took the handle off of it. It's dull. It's been used and they poop out. This is as good as any of the saws on the market, and they're all junk. I mean, they'll cut for a while, and then these teeth are so hard you can't do much with them. I may do a video sometime experimenting with heat treating these teeth back to a more normal hardness level that you might be able to file them or do something with them, but really there's not much you can do with them, to be honest with you. The saw got a good bit of use. It got about 1.5 years of use, and sure enough, it's dull. So what do you do with the thing? Well, I've taken the handle off and cut some card scraper sized pieces out. These I've already tested. They're great card scrapers. My original one, I have several of these. They're not quite 2 inches, probably because I've sharpened it, but I think when they come new they're 2 by 5, and there is a 2 by 6 you can get. But the thickness I measured was 30 thousandths or 3/100ths of an inch. This plate measures 40 thousandths right on the button, so 4/100ths of an inch. So it's a little stiffer material, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not as flexible as this. And I wondered, with as hard as this steel is, you know, they've done some high-tech hardening on these teeth here. I think they usually call it induction hardened or impulse hardened or something. When you buy the saw, it has this picture: durable induction hardened teeth. Was supposed to last forever, right? Well, you get 1 year out of it and then it's crap. So what do you do with it? Well, if you throw this away, then it is a waste. But if you could cut this, what if you could get some scrapers out of it? So I've taken this scraper I had and already traced 2 of them, and I'm going to mark another one here and cut it out, and I'll show you. I happen to have a scribing pen. It's a tungsten carbide etching pen. You don't need this, it just is helpful when you're marking metals. And I will trace this and cut these lines with a mini grinder and a cutting wheel. So I'll shut down and set up and video that as well. Okay, now here in the backyard, got an old sawhorse. I'm going to put gloves on because of the heat. Metal dust isn't good for you, but outside it's not usually an issue. But metal dust is horrible for your lungs. So also, the dust coming off of this grinding wheel typically is molten metal. It's not really dust. So you do want to think about the sparks, because I saw my brother one time cut and caught his pants on fire. So you don't really want to do that. It kind of ruins your day. So think about the sparks and where you're at, and of course in a wood shop and all that. So I just come out in the backyard, cut it. This is what I call a whiz wheel on a mini grinder. I will cut these 2 lines. There's no point in trying to break it, score it, or anything. What you save in time trying to break it, you spend in time trying to fix that edge with a file and everything. So you're better off to just cut the thing. Oh, and by the way, I've seen maybe one other video where they cut a plate like this, a saw plate, and they were discussing how the heat ruined the steel and all that, and that's hogwash, because the steel is so hard that the amount of heat that this is going to generate, which is considerable, still doesn't temper the steel down anywhere near. In fact, we're going to have to temper it more. I'll explain that in a minute, but don't worry about the heat from this hurting the metal, because I'm telling you, it's so hard. It needs all the annealing you can do. So let's cut it and then we'll move from there. I I have glasses on, that's an automatic, and I think, like I said, gloves are an automatic. Those two others I cut just like this and prepared both edges like a typical card scraper. On this one I'm going to experiment by beveling one edge. So we'll have a traditional edge and we'll have a beveled edge. We'll give that a shot. I'm just going to use this little whiz grinder to do my beveling. I'm using the same wheel and everything. Adjust my guard a little. Okay, that gives me the start of a beveled edge, so we'll try preparing this. I'll shut down and set up somewhere else. Okay, I've got the plate and it's still a little, nah, it's not even warm. It's pretty well cooled off from the cutting. So that may have softened it a little. But I know from my first one that I did, the steel is so hard that I still had a struggle mushrooming the edge into your typical card scraper burrs. So I thought then and there, gosh, this needs softened further or tempered down more. So I happen to have a MAP gas torch. You could use a butane torch. If you don't have one, you can go on and do the process without softening it, but it will be harder. If you have access to a torch, soften it as I'm about to show. And what you're looking for in carbon steels, and it's going to be hard, I don't think you're going to be able to see this on the camera, but this saw has a black coating, so it's the new racing black that everyone should have in a scraper. But the black coating is working against me here because all I can see is that little edge and this little edge. And what you're looking for, though, in carbon steels, you know, if you were using a regular saw that had a regular colored plate like this to make a regular scraper, when you heat carbon steels, they change colors, and those colors mean something. And normally, like in a knife or something, amber is about as dark as you want to get with it, a light amber color. That's tempered the steel back to where you can sharpen it and work with it, and yet it'll hold an edge. If you start getting blue or dark blue, indigo color, it starts out light lavender and moves through indigo into dark indigo. That's really beginning to soften the steel, and in a knife edge, a lot of times that's not desirable. But in this, I know from experimenting on the second one that I did, that indigo is still plenty hard for this. Because you need the steel malleable enough to put that burr on. So I'm going to heat the edge to an indigo, deep amber or indigo color. And like I said, I don't know if you can see it in the video or not. There it goes, right at the edge. Near the corner it goes faster than the center. You just play the flame. There's the amber color. You run the flame along the edge. There's the amber color spreading. If all I wanted was amber, that'd be it. There's a little bit of blue up here, but I want to take it to that indigo color all the way across. See, there's the dark amber right in the middle here. I'll hit it some more. There goes the indigo color. I want to make it fairly consistent. There it goes. Okay, that's an indigo all the way across the beveled edge. I'll flip and do this narrow edge as well. Okay, it's a deep blue across the narrow edge as well. I'm going to let that cool down, and I'll set it right on the vise. It's kind of a heat sink here on this vise. That flat portion, anvil portion of the vise, is kind of a heat sink, and it'll draw out some of the heat. Okay, I put the, I happen to have this machinist vise, and they're always nice to have, so I rig it up, mounted in my face vise on my bench. And I've started preparing the edge. Now the point of the beveled edge would be to thin this a little bit, which will make it easier to consolidate the edge and bend the burr on it, or mushroom the burr on it. That's the theory anyway with beveled edge scrapers. So I've run a file. This is just a Nicholson handy file. It has a double cut side and a single cut side, so you have your choice. They're a great all-purpose file. Got it chucked in the vise. I took my gloves off, but you may want to keep your gloves on. I usually knock the corner off a little bit. I will probably go with, I'm just flattening this, and then I'm going to put the bevel a little bit prettier. Try to make it a little more symmetrical and evenly beveled. Like that. I'll take it out and show you in a second here. It's not perfect, but to even that bevel out, I could show you here if you could see. It's evened out that bevel across there. This is still not perfectly flat. In fact, it probably has a little curvature in it, which might be a good thing. This is where, you know, you may want gloves on. I took mine off. There's little hairs on it, and I'll take the file, make sure that back is flat, and no burr there now. and then do the other side. And you have two choices on the other side. You can put the vise, open the vise and put the file in the vise, and then run this on it like this. And you're looking to try to hold it about 90 degrees. You don't want to be way off. Although if you are, you could still put the burr on it just like we're going to do on the beveled edge. You just can't, you won't get two burrs. You won't get two sides. So if you were off, you need to know which side you're off and then do the burr to the opposite side. But normally on most card scrapers, I think the prevailing historical teaching is that you want to be square, and then you're gonna mushroom this edge. You're gonna burnish this edge, and it creates a mushroomed head which has two little cutting burrs on it. So, you know, you have two choices. You can put this in the vise and hold this pretty straight, or you put this scraper in the vise and draw file it like this. And I can tell you this is still hard. This file cuts it now, but it's still hard steel. And I can just tell you that it feels right compared to a store-bought premium scraper. This is an old Crown. The new Crown scraper is about 10 or 11 bucks. So obviously if you've got to run out and buy a bunch of tools for a $10 scraper, don't do that. But if you have some of these tools already or access to some of these and you're throwing away saws, then's when you want to think about doing this. Okay, so this is fresh metal. Clean the sides off a little bit, because that's just the little burr from filing. We're ready to go on and prepare the edge, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, for my burnishing tool, in this case, using a big chrome vanadium hard steel screwdriver that happens to be a 4-sided shank screwdriver. Now I experiment all the time with burnishing tools. You can buy the burnishers and they may or may not be the best thing. I think you learn what works for you, and I have experimented with screwdriver shanks and burnishing tools, and I have a tool in the case over there, but I like this. It worked on the first two black ones because I have a square-sided thing and I have this corner here which still is rounded, and it puts a lot of pressure at one point, which I need on such hard steel. What I'm going to do is burnish the beveled side and both sides of the square side. So I'll do the square side first. I'm just pounding the metal against itself. Like that, right off the edge of the bench. Right here, and I'm going right off the edge of the bench. Okay, that's kind of consolidated that edge, and then I'll do the bevel side. On the beveled side here, I'll pound it a little bit. There's a lot more refinement I could have done to that. I could have gone to a Arkansas stone, but I have pounded that on there a little bit. It's not that dangerous because this isn't that sharp yet. There's no burr there or anything. Now we'll put it in the vise, in the low vise here, the woodworking vise, and see if I can get a burr started on this beveled edge. What I'm after is I'm after putting the burr on the opposite side of the little bevel. So I don't know if I'll succeed on my first try here. It's getting a burr. I'm folding that over a little bit. I've got it down like you would think you would do for this side, but because I'm pulling it up, I'm rolling it this way. I don't want to get too level and fold it too far the other way. Yeah, there's quite a bit of burr there, so is that better than the normal edge? I don't know. It's a good burr. Will it last longer? I don't know. Let's do the regular edge. Now I could have run this on a stone. You can take a rough stone, a diamond stone, one of your coarser stones, and refine that metal a little bit. I've already consolidated off the edge. There's no burr there. But you can take some of the scratches out from the file and maybe improve that and make it burnish better. I'll see if I can start burnishing. I'm going to try to stay level. Now I'll tilt a little. There's a burr starting. A couple more. And do the other side. I have to flip it around to do it well. Okay, I think I'll stop there. I'll set up with some wood and we'll see how we did. A big chunk of white oak here. It was salvaged off of packing. I always watch for that kind of stuff. And it's pretty hard wood. It's heavy and dry. So here's the beveled side on this one. And I've rolled the burr over so the burr goes away from me, the bevel toward me. Let's try it. A lot of bite there. There's a lot of burr. So that's looking pretty good. I need a dog to keep this from moving around. My dog maybe would be better there, like that. Not bad. Let's try the other side. That's your regular burr side, square edge burr side. That's really good shavings. Try the other side. Not pushing very hard, but this has some beef to it, and it bites pretty good. So if I went too fast, it would heat up quick. Let's try the bevel again. I like the way the bevel bites. I like the way that works. Compare it to my store-bought scraper I've had for years, which is fairly sharp. It's thinner, so it bends more. This is very straight grain, so I don't know if it would do better on another face. That's against the grain. I don't have anything right on hand right now that's finer grain like walnut or cherry. I might, let me see. I do have some maple I could try. Could try a big chunk of maple here. Same thing, I got it out of packing. That's the old scraper. Let's try the new one here. Yeah. That's the beveled side. Let's try the normal side. Nice shavings. Not bad for the first try, and a little more perfection in the sharpening, squaring the edge, and more burnishing will begin to build out more edge, I think. The steel is so hard in this. It's still too hard, but it'll hold that edge, I think. Yeah, this beveled edge really works well. That's another thing. This is 0.010 of an inch thicker than a store-bought scraper. So already it's harder to get the edge on because it's thicker. But there's no question the metal's harder. There's a good shaving, and I think my edge, I want to be a little higher up with this edge, like this. Whereas on the beveled edge I can be a little more lean. It's a really hard maple. I call it rock maple. I think it's some kind of eastern sugar maple. It doesn't take a lot of force to do this. Just out of curiosity, what would my paint scraper do? I haven't sharpened it lately, but pretty good shavings. Little bit rougher finish. I can see some scratches in it compared to the other scrapers. So already we've exceeded the finish with this over this. This could use a good sharpening too. It's been used a lot. So it's hard to say on the comparison, but already we've got this quality pretty high. We're getting it very close to this. The steel in this is really good steel in these saw plates. Whatever they do, may not be much good as a saw, but it sure is good as a card scraper. We could make scratch stock, we could do lots of other little tools that are becoming extinct. Very few sources for these tools, like scratch stocks. You know, unless you consider Amazon as your all-encompassing source for everything. Otherwise you're getting pretty hard pressed to just run out and buy a card scraper. Woodworking store if you have one. Otherwise you about have to go online and hunt for one in a mail order type arrangement. So ability to make yourself several of these. Now with this steel being this hard, could it be annealed more? Maybe. I'd have to heat it to like an orange, a light orange color, And I don't know what happens to this racing black here, so I don't know what kind of fumes it sets off and all that, so there's some concern there about what's what. I know this little camera in this, I'm liking that already, and you don't see that in a lot of scrapers. I know it's available, but I don't have one that has the camera in it, and I'm liking that. And I'm really liking this beveled edge side, what I can do with it, and I'm not seeing too many scratches in it. It's a little better than the paint scraper, but probably not as good as my Kuntz cabinet scraper. Yeah, the Kuntz is still smoother. The Kuntz is ready to go finish. I can see a difference in the light on it. The Kuntz is really nice. The Kuntz is 45 thousandths, so it's even thicker yet. That's kind of why it takes this handle mechanism to hold the thing. But this is putting you somewhere in between. Now this metal would be great for scratch stocks and other tools that are, like I said, becoming endangered species, or in some cases extinct. Yeah, this side, on the normal side, if it's more upright, my burr is working real good. And that finish is good enough to finish. But it, like I say, it is not as slick as the Kuntz cabinet scraper, and probably not as slick as a freshly sharpened hand plane if you're getting good hand planing. So there's a little bit to think about, but thanks for watching.